First on BBC One Wales, the news headlines we can afford.
Good morning. The Russian envoy Viktor Chernomyrdin is travelling to China for talks to try to find a settlement to the Kosovo crisis. Demonstrations against the NATO bombing of the Chinese embassy in Belgrade are continuing in the streets of Beijing for the third day running.
The anger on the streets of Beijing shows little signs of subsiding. For a third day, crowds again gathered at the American and British embassies to protest and throw stones. Troops merely looked on. Today, the Chinese President Jiang Zemin spoke out for the first time about the bombing, blaming what he called NATO's gunboat policy. The Russian envoy, Viktor Chernomyrdin, is on his way to Beijing for talks with China's leaders. And here, the Foreign Office has advised British citizens not to travel to China. Meanwhile, the target of NATO's campaign, Yugoslavia, is taking its case to the International Court of Justice in The Hague. It's accusing NATO's members, including Britain, of a gross violation of the United Nations Charter and demanding an immediate end to the air campaign.
The Prime Minister has led tributes to the Foreign Office Minister Derek Fatchett, who died suddenly yesterday. It's believed he suffered a heart attack. Mr Blair said Mr Fatchett was an excellent minister who took to government immediately. The head of the diplomatic service said he was greatly admired and would be missed as a keen, effective minister and a good friend. The number of people waiting for hospital operations in England fell by nearly 47,000 in March. There are just over 1 million still on the waiting lists, but opposition parties have accused the Health Secretary, Frank Dobson, of affecting doctors' decisions by putting too much emphasis on cutting NHS queues. The charity Christian Aid is challenging claims by the producers of genetically modified crops that their seeds will ease world hunger. It says GM foods could make poor farmers even poorer.
Brazil is the second largest producer of soya in the world, and the vast majority of its crop is GM-free. A third of soya imported to Britain comes from Brazil. It's a lucrative potential market, and biotech companies are trying to persuade farmers to swap to their genetically modified seed. Monsanto are accused of growing this GM soya without the necessary permission. The company says it did have permission, but Christian Aid claims it's trying to bounce both the state and local farmers into transferring to GM varieties. In countries like India, there's already opposition to genetically modified crops. This cotton's being burnt by protesters. Christian Aid says the spread of GM crops is encouraging a trend away from growing food to the production of other crops to meet demand in rich countries.
And that's it. More news in an hour.